Well, massive news this morning in the NRL. Zac Lomax has been banned from playing in the NRL for 2 years. The Eels are digging their heels in. They won't release him to the Melbourne Storm. We broke this morning on Code Sports, and the great Brent Reed comes and joins me. Brady, you were breaking this story, of course, with myself and Michael Carianis.
Yeah.
Look, I'm stunned, Reedy. This is one of the most significant decisions we've ever seen. A player on the sidelines for 2 years potentially.
Yeah.
What do you make of this?
I'm like you, Pete, because I always thought this would get settled before it went to court. And obviously they've held some last-ditch talks and they couldn't arrive at an agreement. Now, for me, no one wins out of this. Zac
Yeah.
Lomax definitely doesn't win. He can't play for 2 years. The Storm don't win because they didn't get Zac Lomax and they actually had to pay some of the court costs. And Para don't win because how's it improved Parramatta? Like, they haven't got any extra salary cap space. I know they don't need the money, but I'm told that the final offer, Melbourne offered $750,000 straight out transfer fee. Now, Para don't need the money, but that's a hell of a lot of money for Zac Lomax. But it hasn't made Parramatta any better, Pete. So, and you know what? People will argue about the sanctity of contracts and all that sort of stuff, right? But I'm a bit with Peter V'landys on this. We've now got a player who wanted to come in, who is a star in our game, left, wanted to come back, and we've closed the door on it. He'll go to rugby now. Well, how does that make rugby league better? So it's one of those rare situations where nobody wins.
I mean,
except the lawyers, Pete. The lawyers got rich.
yeah. Well, you should have been a lawyer, Reedy. But I'll
I
say
should have been.
this.
Dennis
You know what,
DeVito.
Reedy? This is my take, right?
Yeah.
If I'm a CEO of Parramatta, I would have wanted to make the release happen. I would have wanted to make it instantaneous and be prepared for Zac to play somewhere else if we get some benefits, right? But let me put this to you, Reedy.
Mm.
You could argue if you're Jim Sarantino's at the Eels, why should they release Zac Lomax? For example, this was a circumstance of his own doing in many ways. I mean, he chose to have the dalliance with R360. He had a contract with Parramatta. He didn't have to go anywhere. Parramatta were happy to keep paying him. So I can understand Parramatta's. I personally would let him go, right? But I can understand the Eels' position saying, no, we've got a contract. There is a sanctity to contracts. They should be upheld, and we're not going to release him.
Pete, I understand what you're saying, but there's a certain level of hypocrisy in that because Para got him because he broke a contract and they didn't pay a transfer fee for him. They got him for nothing. And Melbourne offered $750,000. That's a hell of a lot of money, for Zac Lomax. A hell of a lot of money for Zac Lomax. Given Zac's history, I mean, there's no guarantee he would have stayed at Melbourne's, but Melbourne were willing to pay Parramatta $750,000. And at one point, they were willing to take Ryan Madison, who's got about 400 and something left on his contract, and pay a $300,000 transfer fee. Now, Ryan Madison blocked that. And I think Para would have taken that because it would have given them a lot of salary cap space. The $750,000 doesn't help the salary cap, right? The straight up fee. It helps their bottom line as a club. As I said, they don't need the money. They're loaded. But, and I'll say the other thing about this, Pete, the other bit of collateral damage in this for Parramatta is, do you reckon Peter V'landys and the NRL are happy about this? Peter's been very outspoken about wanting Zac Lomax back in the game. So if you're Jim Sarantinos and Matt Beach, the chairman, they've now risked the wrath of Peter V'landys. Like, do you really want that? We both copped that at points, Pete. That ain't fun, baby.
No, you don't make people angry. Look, I'll say this, Rudy. Look, it's a ballsy move by the Eels, and in a sense, you've got to applaud the constitution of Jim Sarantinos and look, and Eels hierarchy. If they're prepared to show the backbone to say we have a contract, it has to be enforceable, and in Zac Lomax's case, he was playing with fire with R360, and he's been burned. Now, I feel for Zac. I would like to see him in the NRL this season. But this is a cautionary tale for any NRL player that if you want to have a dalliance with an unsanctioned league that was not operational, this is the fallout and there is a price to pay. And unfortunately, Zac's going to pay it, Rudy, for the next 2 years by the sounds of it. Look, I think this is unbelievable. And we remember Gordon Tallis sat out 1 year during Super League. To think a player could sit out of the NRL for 2 years, I mean, as you said, Rudy, it looks like now he may have to go elsewhere and look at other codes because he won't be playing NRL for the next 2 years.
Yeah. There's a fine line between being brave and being foolhardy, Pete. And I reckon Para are walking that right now. Because, yes, you can say it's really brave to dig in their heels and say, no, he's not coming back. But as I said, the collateral damage of that is some relationships. And some of those relationships are really important in rugby league. So that's the bit that in hindsight, we'll judge this decision and go, well, that was really either a really brave move or a bit naive and silly. So time will be the judge of that. But, I feel for Zac Lomax. I mean, look, not a lot of people out there have sympathy for Zac, right? Zac's made his bed, as you said, to a large extent. But this has taken a significant toll on him, as I understand it, and he wants to come back to rugby league and he can't. And I think that's unfortunate. And we can all argue about the sanctity of a contract, but mate, let's be honest. In rugby
Yeah.
league, contracts haven't been sacred or sanctified or whatever you want to call it for years.
Yeah.
So, poor old Zac's the bloke who's copping the rough end of the pineapple now.
Yeah, well, you know what what I'd be doing now, Rudy, if I'm Michael Chamis at the PNG Chiefs,
Oh
2028,
yes,
I'd be signing Zac Lomax, tax-free dollars. So there you go, Chammy. I've got the first recruit for
yeah,
you,
you
mate.
got
But
him.
anyway, thanks for joining us, Rudy. We'll read more about this, your brilliant coverage on Code Sports and News Corp platforms. Huge day, huge decision. Bombshell for Zac Lomax. Can't play in the NRL for another 2 years.